right, language. This is pretty interesting because what did we do last week? We did listening, right? I didn't mean to do an L series. It just is what it is, right? I just wanted to kick into this because I've been thinking about this for a while, and it shouldn't, this thought process shouldn't be new to anybody because we talk about language every day. There's a great new podcast out called Words That Matter. And it's run out of, and I can't give credit where credit's due because I don't know exactly who's running it, even though I've listened to it a few times. I've gotten a lot of the names. It's a lot of new names and a lot of new things. So I want to recommend that to you as part of getting this language and words. It's actually Words That Matter, but it's language, right? It's in the title. It's not just what we say. We get focused on what we say. And I think when you listen to the Words That Matter podcast, they're really talking about language anyway. And I'm not knocking them. I'm just saying it's language. And language is about what we say, why we say it, what we say. I think I said that. When we say it, how we say it, right? And language is all about context too, right? Which is another big part of this whole conversation. So this is how I want to come from this. This is how I want you thinking about this is, again, language. Okay. And it has a lot of control, and we would all acknowledge, you saw my write-ups, we would all acknowledge it has a huge impact during the clinical care portion. And it just baffles me day in and day out how 30 minutes, 45 minutes, 60 minutes of clinical care, a session. So maybe 1 or 2 sessions a week. So we're going to worry about the language for 2 hours. We're going to worry about language. Actually, for the 2 hours they're with you. What about when they're dealing with your front desk team? What about when they're dealing with your billing team? What about when they're dealing with other staff? What about when they're talking with other people within your, I don't want to talk about outside the community because we can't control that. But what we can control for is everything inside the doors, right? Their patient life cycle. And so again, understanding the patient life cycle is step number 1 in every one of these conversations. We can't talk about the language, the words, the what, the when, the where, the how of language until we understand their journey within our business. Where are they in their journey? The beauty is the context of the language shifts as they move through the journey, yet the verbiage shouldn't change. The why you're saying things shouldn't change. Right. So this is interesting as heck because there's so many components in this whole complexity and simplicity world we live in. And we really like to simplify things, and we really like to get it down to the disc is injured, this is injured, that's injured. And yet research will show us it has a lot more to do than just that. And so, it's actually complex to make it simple. So, which is one of my new favorite quotes, right? It's not simplicity, right, is the ultimate, right? It's understanding the complexity of the system and the process that's going on so that you can then begin to dive down and at least appear to make it more simple. And that's really what we're looking at with language here. And that's why the structure, so let's just go straight upstream. That's why the structure of the front desk systems and processes are set up the way they are. It's interesting. About 2 years ago, I went to people and I said, look, I'm not bringing scripts. I'm not changing your conversation. I'm just changing how you have the conversation. And I said that about 2 years ago. And what I realize now with some of the new readings and some of the new things I'm seeing and the power of language that we've known all along is that's all it is, right? It's still the same objectives to be achieved. This is all good. It just all ties in so tight, right? If we don't know the objectives we want to achieve, then it's very difficult to have the right conversation, right? It's very difficult to understand the language that needs to be used, how and when. And if the objective is to get people scheduled early on, then the language, the context of conversation will be around getting people scheduled. Name, date of birth, phone number, insurance, date you're available. If I then say, right, which you guys have heard, if I then say, look, schedules is a step in a process. And the ultimate goal is to get them to arrive. Now we got to dig deeper, right? What is the conversation we have to have? What is the language we have to use, right? Because now that's our context. It's really interesting here because we're talking about context on our side and context, learning the context of the person on the other end of the phone. So the context on our side is to get people to arrive. And we could go one deeper is to determine if they are the right fit for the business and then get them scheduled in a manner that they will arrive. That changes the whole conversation, which therefore we could almost use conversation as a umbrella term for language and why we use it and when we use it and how we use it. So again, to go back where we started, if language and words are so important in the treatment room, then to believe they're not important and that we have no control over it outside of the treatment room is false and is actually failing our patients. And by the way, not just failing the patients, again, it's failing the potential patients, because this is about getting people in your clinic from your community who are the best fit for your clinic. And if you're not having the same conversation, using the same process 100% of the time, then you are not doing what you need to do for the people in your community who need help. Notice I did not say the word your help, and your would be an example of language and how we use language, right? I said who need help. If I say everybody who calls your office, here's the first example of the verbiage and how we use it and when we use it and why we use it. If I say everybody calling your office needs your help, and I go into every call with that mindset, then I just get people scheduled. If I take the word your out of there and I back up and say everybody who calls your office needs help, that should make everybody pause. And again, the why and the how of the conversation should start to shift. The beauty is how we structure this is all the same. But again, in how we're giving the instructions and the power of language and the power of understanding what's going on, that example is awesome, right? Again, with your front desk or with you, everybody who calls your clinic needs your help. Everybody who calls your clinic needs help. I think you can see what's going on there, right? So this language thing is so important and must be utilized and must be understood for your patient's life cycle, right? And how I'm having that conversation. So let's shift it to the other side, right? How we're going to manage these people who call. There's multiple layers here, yet again, as with everything else, just like with listening, and language comes with multiple layers, right? And these things, again, don't occur in a vacuum. They occur together, they weave together. So as we talk about connecting the dots in your systems, all the more reason for your providers to understand what's going on in phase 2 of your patient's life cycle before they arrive in the clinic. Because the goal and the objective when the provider meets this arrived new patient is to continue the conversation that started on the first phone call. So their words, their why, their how, their context is dropped in your lap so you can continue to have a conversation, AKA use the language you need to do to continue them on their journey with you to get them to where they need to be, their desired outcomes. It's hard to talk about just the language here because it's all connected. And again, the better you understand the bigger picture of the connectedness and understanding the need to connect all the dots, then this language part starts to be really important. I went back to, I told you about 2 years ago, I just told people we're not using scripts. We're just flipping your conversation and changing the way you ask these questions. The only reason people's phone calls are longer when I work with them is because they're learning a new technique. It's not because we've added. I've listened to a group of phone calls recently, nothing shorter than like 15, 20 minutes, right? Which is an interesting thing to think about here because it's not just about the conversation, right? Again, because they're not efficient. Those 15 and 20-minute phone calls are not efficient because the understanding of the person taking that call about the language and how and why and the what of all the questions is totally lost. So their context is lost. Because why? Because they're trying to get people on the schedule and they're trying to convince people of why they should pay X amount of dollars for whatever the heck they're going to pay for. And what they're not doing, so let's take another step here. In language and communication, right? And in the context of what we need to do, we need to build relationships because building these relationships enables us to really dig into the beliefs and the biases and the value systems of the people we're talking to, which is beautiful because, right, that are the value system. So things that are important to them, right? Because later we're going to use that conversation to understand and to better repeat back if we are the right fit for them. So these phone calls are not about length. They're not just about conversations, right? They are about, and you've heard this 1 million times, and I'll probably say this word at least one time on every one of these, is this relationship being built. Because in order to understand the language and the why and the how and the what of what I need to talk about, I need to build a relationship. Allow you to share your values, your beliefs, AKA what you want from us, so that I can begin to frame the conversation. That's a huge word, frame. So I can frame the conversation around you. And I can then use, I don't want to say your words. Let's not do that. I can then use your values, your beliefs, the things you want, and insert them into what we can deliver to determine what? If we are the right fit for you. So you've heard all this come full circle already, and however long this has been going on. The sooner we can figure out what people need, the sooner we can determine that by asking better questions and listening, then the easier the conversation, the language, the how, the why, the what, the when of what we're going to do will occur. So when I talk about better questions, it's us using the right words, the right language at the right time, so that we can, again, start to build a value equation for this person on the other end of the phone. And that value equation should be based on what they've shared with you. Let's reverse engineer this. They shared it with you because you're building a relationship with them. And anybody who knows my patient life cycle and has heard any of this before, one of the objectives, the number one objective of phase 2, this first phone call to patient, customer, client arrival, is start to build a relationship that will last throughout their entire life cycle with your practice, business, company. So if I'm in that mindset, then I'm going to ask better questions to get us to your values, your beliefs. And I'm going to use the language, right? Which again is the when, the why, the how, the what, to pull that and get that information from you. So I can then take you through the conversation to make sure and let you determine. This is what I love. You're going to determine if you are the right fit for us. I started by saying, I want to make sure we're the right fit for you. What that means is I need to gather all this information. So think about this early on. Think about this whole language saying when, how, what, why, the context. So within the first 10, 20 minutes on the phone, 10, 20 minutes, 30 seconds on the phone, I tell you, I would like to ask you more questions to make sure we are the right fit for you. Now, people, I've had this conversation. What you didn't hear me say was you are the right fit for us. So then that allows me to ask them questions and go where I need to go to share what we, this is from last week, can deliver to you. And then I tell you, because you shared with me your wants, your needs, your beliefs, your values, I tell you whether we're the right fit for you because you shared with me all the things you want and need. There's a method to this madness, of which then I tell you the price, and then you get to choose what you want to do. But I can only do this after having this conversation and building this relationship, starting to build a relationship, building a relationship. And I'm going to do this again. I didn't think about this till just now, but that is the why and the how of the 10-point checklist. It really is. I'm not here to get it, giving it away to everybody. I'm not here to, because by the way, if you take that 10-point checklist and put it next to you and watch like the last 8 of these in a row, you'll see it all is in there. I cannot stress enough the value of that sheet of paper that sits on my desktop that I'll send to anybody. When I took a deeper dive into the listening and looked at that, it was all there. When I took a deeper dive into this language part and I looked at that, this was all there, right? When I talk about why will they arrive, it's all in there. When I talk about the 5 questions that must be answered after every first phone call, it's all in there. It is the one-stop shop. It's a training tool. It's a actual log or template to use for every call. It's everything you need in one spot. So if you want it, just type 10-point checklist below, because that is where, again, that's the map. That's the journey. That's the stopping points. That's the process for your first phone call, which, because of your business as an ecosystem and everything upstream having a bigger impact than this step after it on the business as a whole, we talk about this first phone call so much. And why talking about language and doing these same exact things in the treatment room is key in the context of, if they just had a shit ass experience and nobody asked them any of these questions, and nobody asked them the right questions, and nobody understood the how, the why, and the what of the questions they did ask them, then you're just fucking rolling dice every fucking time someone walks into your clinic. Drop-offs, man. Why do you think drop-offs occur? Expectations. Why aren't expectations managed and set well? Because we didn't have the right conversation. We didn't use the right language. And the best way to get your drop-off rate down and the best way to get your cancel rate down is to start to manage it before they ever occur. Understand the conversations, understand the language, understand the questions that must be used throughout this patient's life cycle. Understand how all the dots are connected so you can continue to have the same conversation. If I'm going to build a relationship with you and I want it ongoing, then I can't ask you the same fucking questions every time we meet without context, right? Because we'll do it on return visits after the evaluation. But guess what? There's a system because of this within selling the plan of care where I tell you, I'm going to ask you these 4 questions at the beginning and at the end of every visit. I just told you why I'm going to ask you the same question, why you're going to repeat yourself. I'm using the language to set the context, understanding what's going to happen downstream. That if I don't do this, you're going to wonder why. And if I don't do this, you're going to forget why you're here. So there's multiple reasons to understand what needs to move between each step. This is the work to be done, my friends. No more freaking Con Ed courses for the PTs. No more new equipment. Sit everybody down, get the patient life cycle mapped out, figure out what needs to occur during each phase of that life cycle, including what information needs to be passed down, and systematize it. You cannot use the word care. We care for people if you can't show me the system for care. Not in healthcare. Caring does not exist without a system. Because if I do all this work on the front desk and then people arrive and have to answer the same questions and fill out a bunch of paperwork they didn't expect, you don't care. Your providers say they care, but they care in that context of that 45 minutes they're with the patient. And then what happens when they walk out? Right? What happens in between visits? What happens on the return visit? Is your provider greeting them like a new patient every freaking time, trying to catch up and remember where they were and how they left? Right? There needs to be a structure for that. And again, let's go back upstream and think about the language. So if I'm managing and setting expectations on the first phone call, and I do this when I make sure people know what's going to occur during the evaluation, it's a high level overview with the exactly chosen proper words. And the reason I choose the words I do is because it leaves the flexibility for the provider to then go through the plan of care and set the patient up for success. And that's what the patient's waiting for, right? The patient is waiting. When they get off the phone with people I train, the way I used to do it, the patients are waiting for that plan of care to come. They're not surprised by it. So again, the words we choose, the further upstream, and that we carry over, right? And then the provider has to use the word plan of care. Hey, Jerry, now we're going to go through that plan of care you've been waiting for. The words, the when, the how, the why are fucking huge. All right. So this language, you're going to be hearing more of this because I've been diving deep into this. And this is a lot of this by accident is what I've been doing, right? I just told you why we want to determine if we are the right fit for you. I used to let people say if you're the right fit for us. I said, nope, it's got to go the other way, right? And there's all those things like that you got to sit and think about. What do you want from us versus what do you need from us? There's a reason for all that. Letting them know they're being scheduled with an expert. There's a reason for that, right? Just building the relationship so I can get to their values, their beliefs, their wants. So I can build a value equation around them, not us. Now there's context for that conversation. All right, cool. This is good stuff, man. This is deep. That there's a lot of information to be shared around this. Yet I want you to understand that right, there's a better questions. There's the why, the how, and the what for the language and the conversations. And nobody is surprised by the conversations I bring. Nobody is surprised by the way I manage the front desk when we start working together, right? Nobody is surprised by the information that's going to be shared. It's just pulling it. It's looking at the big picture, a completed plan of care, the patient's journey within your business, right? Actually, that's only one part of it, but it's first looking at the patient's journey within your business, the focus on the completed plan of care. Then if everybody on the team understands those two things, then these parts fit naturally together. They go, I get it. And I go, yeah, that's why we're connecting these two, because look further up. I was talking about bonus programs for front desk people. I said, well, let's go back up one level. Bonus programs for everybody in the business have to be based on a business goal. Sorry, an overarching goal for the business, AKA a patient success goal, a completed plan of care. That way, everybody on the team is then bonused individually on a completed plan of care, but then they might get a smaller bonus based on something that moves people to a completed plan of care. And that's why most people are failing with the bonus structures they set up. They bonus people heavily for things that do not influence and do not impact the bigger picture. The bigger picture is not revenue in the bank. The bigger picture is a completed plan of care. So if I bring, and by the way, listen to this terminology I'm using. This is the same thing. If I tell you your job is to help people complete their plans of care, and then I bonus you on things that don't feed into that and show you how, maybe we hit it, maybe we don't. If you know how what you're doing every day from 9 to 5 all day long is tied into completed plans of care, and you're going to get a bonus at the end of that based on, at the end of the quarter based on that, it gives you purpose. It gives you meaning. Go back and read those books. Purpose and meaning are huge. Visits and cancels, we're not even going to go into that today. Running all these front desk people bonused on visits and canceled. I'm like, no, don't feed into fucking completed plans of care. You're looking at the wrong place, man. You're too far downstream. So don't want to lose sight of this topic. So come back, right? If everybody knows the patient life cycle, if they know the ultimate goal they are trying to achieve, which is a completed plan of care, and then everybody knows how they feed into that completed plan of care, you will be successful. Your patients will be successful. The business will be successful. Your employees will be successful, and you will have personal success. If you understand the patient life cycle, where the completed plans of care fit in, and how everybody else fits into that. And if you can't look at people and help them do better understand how they move a patient through to a completed plan of care, that's the problem. And I know a guy who can help you. I'm not here to pitch you stuff, but this is it, man. This is the last freaking 20 years of work right here. And fortunately, a lot of it I stumbled into and then just found that little nudge to improve it. Right? I've been changing this language stuff forever. I changed it in my own business. I couldn't find anything about it. I wasn't reading anything about it. I just knew from answering the phone for a year that what we thought people were thinking was not true, because I freaking asked them. And I started tweaking things based on that. And then I found out, hey, wait, I had a big enough pool of people. I had a big enough sample size for people calling for MSK, right? For musculoskeletal physical therapy, which you then found most of it's true, even if it's a parent calling for peds, because I'm working with peds practices. And if we come out of that MSK freaking niche, then I go, hey, wait a minute, the conversation's the same everywhere, but we have to tweak the conversation. Remember what I was saying at the beginning? I'm just going to flip this conversation and make it more appropriate for what you are doing here. It all fits. It all fits. It's all based on the language of asking better questions: when, why, how, and what. All right, everyone. Thanks for coming in. Notice I got the hands back into it today. The hands have been absent for a while. I was watching a couple of videos I posted the other day. My wife yelled at me last night from across the room and said, who the hell is this guy on my Twitter feed? Just flailing his hands everywhere. And I went back and watched a video and I was like, hey, yeah, that's right. I used to do that all the time. It's my Italian heritage. So yeah, so the hands are back again. I think it helps, especially on the videos when there's no sound. I watch that video with no sound and watch my hands, and it's pretty funny. All right, people. I appreciate you coming. I appreciate your time. Feel free to leave any comments down below. I'll address them. Feel free to ask for the 10-point checklist. Just type in 10-point checklist, and I'll toss that out to you in Facebook Messenger, which is the easiest way to go. And then you will have the tool. You will have the tool. You will have the tool for training. You will have the template for your team to answer the phone. And then again, you will have the tool, the training tool, to do the follow-up on the phone calls. Listen to the recorded phone calls with the template next to you. Did we check all these boxes? If we did, then we're doing most of the things I just talked about today. The interesting thing about the 10-point checklist is the information, right, is there that needs to be shared downstream. It's literally all there. That thing was completed a while back, and every day I look at it and I'm like, God damn, I lucked out. It's all in there. I knew it at the time. Maybe I didn't know why, but I knew it at the time. I knew we needed to collect it because it was important to everybody else I was talking to, the patients. So we got to start collecting this 100% of the time. Remember, it's the process. It's the process. You need to become 100% consistent with the process so that we can start to predict the outcome. We do not control the outcome. We control the process. I think we'll end on that. Another great use of words. Cheers all.